This is not my first time talking about Omniscient Reader, so I will be getting into spoilers in the later half of the video, but if you haven't started this comic yet, what are you doing? I love this comic. I cannot describe everything perfect about it, but just know it is everything I could have ever asked for from a webcomic. Now, maybe that doesn't convince you. Who am I to say what a perfect webcomic is, right? But just know it is incredible and worth a shot. That much I can certainly say. I'm just so excited to talk about it, and I feel like I'm just kind of throwing out good words and asking you to take my word for it. So let me talk about it a little bit. Omniscient Reader is about a guy named Kim Dokcha, who is someone who loves to read. He has like a boring day job, so on the train there and back, he's always reading his favorite web novel. This web novel is called 1,000 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, and it's a great fantasy story that he enjoys reading. But what's crazy is when that story ends up becoming reality on the night that the final chapter is released. And Dokcha is the only reader who continued all the way from the beginning until the end. Meaning that when this world, his world, the normal world, becomes that world and everything's starting to break down and change and the apocalypse is happening, he's the only one who knows what's going to happen. Despite that, he isn't the main character of 1,000 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, so like the main character from that story is still there. Side characters who were in the novel start showing up, but because of Dokcha's actions, things start to change. Characters that should have died off, like people in the real world that he knew, they're all of a sudden alive because he made different decisions from the main character in that story. And so now they're acting differently and they're affecting the story, and so he now has to make different decisions, and it affects him and his relationship with the actual main character from the story. It's a fantasy series, apocalyptic, and it's just incredible. It feels like a perfect sort of mixture of different genres. Like I mentioned, fantasy, apocalypse. It's pretty dark sometimes. A little bit isekai, you know? It has that OP protagonist vibe, but I tend to have an issue with stories where the main protagonist is just kind of OP because I find that there's no stakes, usually. A lot of them are good. I enjoyed reading Solo Leveling. I didn't finish it, but I enjoyed reading what I did. But this story feels like OP protagonist done right, because the protagonist isn't just OP in terms of strength. The protagonist is very smart, very witty in a lot of situations, and I feel like he earns his victories. It's not just given to him, you know? He's a very likable protagonist. He isn't perfect by any means, right? That's what the main character is for when it comes to other qualities. And it just works really well. I find it's a great spin on that genre. There's tons of characters. You know me, I love characters. Okay, when it comes to side characters, minor characters, this comic does not disappoint. There's tons of them, tons of antagonists, protagonists, and what I especially love is that the focus is on them a lot. There are a lot of scenes where they get to show off their abilities and show off their character, which is something that I feel like a lot of stories slack on. You know, especially when it comes to OP protagonists or a lot of shonen type of series, they tend to focus too much on the main character, in my opinion. And this comic is a really good mixture of a ton of focus on the MCs, because there's two basically, but also on the side characters. I can appreciate that. I've been showing art on screen, but if you can't tell, the art is phenomenal. I mean, good gravy, it's sublime. I could talk about the art of Omniscient Reader for literal hours, breaking down panels, my favorite panels, you know? But considering there are over 100 chapters, the art is good from start to finish. It's not one of those stories, I can appreciate a story where the art, it gets better as time goes on, but this one, it probably does get better, but honestly, it's about the same from start to finish because the quality is already 10 out of 10 from the very beginning. This story is very good in a lot of different ways. Check it out if you haven't already. But now we're gonna get into spoiler territory. Click away if you haven't caught up to Omniscient Reader. Okay, all right. I just finished literally a few minutes ago reading the latest chapter. I've been keeping up as best as I can. Holy frick, bro. I cannot get over the entire Yu-Hung saga? Okay, don't get mad at me, everybody. I call her Yu-Hung, I think, a lot in this video. I know it's Yu-Sung. I apologize. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. The Yuhung saga, the catastrophe that I never expected. Because, like, the catastrophe of questions was pretty interesting, right? Because he's connected to, like, all the different, like, Lycaon, like the wolf dude who taught Dokja, who, by the way, is just, like, dead now, I guess, which is pretty sad. But, like, maybe we'll get a little more context on that because of Gil-young. I'm not sure. But the fact that this catastrophe is, like, a vital character and someone who actually was very important to Jung Hyuk in his previous regressions, like, it changes everything. And the fact that we have like a young Yusung and then a Yusung that went through a ton of just horrible experiences where Jung Hyuk treated her like garbage and she wandered for like hundreds of years or whatever, like it changes the entire perspective. Like this catastrophe is a person, right? But we also have like little version of this person. The entire situation was incredible. And I was really wondering how it was gonna pay off, right? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, are we just gonna take out this person? And the way it went down was so sick. Because little Yusung, right? Like present day Yusung, not like future, past Yusung, that, you know what I mean? Like summoning the sea serpents, and at the very end, like getting angry at the Dokebi for how they treated like future Yusung. Like, I don't know, it was just amazing to me. I absolutely loved like how that all went down. And the fact that the entire fight with Yusung was settled by Queen Huiwon, which by the way is the best character in this comic, undisputed, okay? And if you had any doubts, it was these latest few chapters where Huiwon popped off and took down the catastrophe. That was amazing. Like I was already in love with her, but like when I saw the glowing eyes, I was like, what? How could you not be a Huiwon fan? I can't understand people who say this isn't their favorite character. It's unacceptable, frankly. And the entire thing is accented by all of Dokja's companions. I love this scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. When Yusung, the catastrophe Yusung, is looking at all the previous companions of Jung Hyuk. You know, you're looking at Jie, and you're looking at Hyun Song Lee, and she's like, oh, you know, it's you. Or, what about Jung Hyuk, right? And he's like, what? Oh, I'm a companion of Dokja Kim. And her look of like shock, because he's like so different. Like, who is this guy? And she had just killed him, right? And he's coming back to life or whatever. Like, that was amazing. I love that scene. I butchered it, but I'm putting it on screen so you know exactly what they said. I'm butchering it because I'm so excited, but like, I loved it. I got chills. Like, talking about it gives me chills. Because you get to see the loyalty, how different Dokja treats his companions than Jung Hyuk did. Because this is a Yusung who is used to a totally different treatment from Jung Hyuk. You know, and then at the very end, when she's dying, which was insanely tragic and sad, the thoughts, right? Yusung, because Dokja can hear their thoughts, so Yusung is thinking, Jung Hyuk is thinking, and even though he's not saying it out loud, she finally like knows what he actually means and like how he feels, and she just fades away. Beautiful, like actually beautiful. I was crying, man. Like I literally, beautifully written scene, you know, and then of course the Dokebi gets punished afterward, which is just the cherry on top. Dokja kicks his ass, which is always acceptable. It's amazing, man. Like, I don't know, it's on another level for me. And I think this is my favorite, like, arc saga test thing from the entire comic so far. The only thing that is confusing to me is the whole, like, future, past, future, time, regressions, but also, like, authors, but then you have, like, the plagiarizers, and, like, that stuff is a bit confusing to me. Because regressions were a thing in the novel, right? So, like, Jung Hyuk in the novel, Dokja got to read about Jung Hyuk, first regression through whatever, I assume. Like, many, many regressions. But then it's like, okay, so this is the third regression Jung Hyuk in the current timeline of the real world. But then, like, the Yusung that is in here is from, like, a future regression Jung Hyuk. But that, like, only happened in the novel? Like, that stuff confuses me a bit, right? So maybe you can clear it up in the comments. Maybe I'm just dumb. But, I mean, I get it. It's just like when I actually try to work it out in my head, it starts to get a little confusing to me. And I think my favorite part also about this whole Yusung thing is that it was decided by Huiwon. Like, the side characters like Hyun Sung Lee and Gil-young, like, they took a backseat, right? Because Dokja and Sangha, you know, they ended up kind of going off on an adventure with the plagiarizer. Gosh, I'm forgetting her name. What's her name? Soo-young. Okay, when Soo-young and Sangha and Dokja are off doing their own thing, right? Like, obviously, these other side characters hadn't been shown in a while, which, by the way, Soo-young's, like, gone. Like, what's going on there? I love her. She's an awesome character. I want her to come back. But it was so cool seeing them get to shine again. Especially Huiwon, who took down future Yusung. Like, that's just so cool. Like, Jung Hyuk and Dokcha couldn't do it, but Huiwon could. Like, how badass is that? And I will say, too, like, Dokcha himself being accepted as a companion of Jung Hyuk, like a trusted ally. He's my companion, right? I love it. I love it because you can already see the difference Dokcha is making in the lives of these people. And Jung Hyuk is like the most important person here, arguably. So seeing even him like change, like he thought Dokcha was dead and like that whole thing. I don't know, man. Like it's just epic. It's epic. I think epic is a really good word to describe this comic because I love it. I'm going to keep reading it. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below about what you think about all this stuff. But download the WEBTOON app. I'm sure you're already reading Omniscient Reader, so be sure to like those chapters. Read other comics that are on there. I talked about Everything is Fine recently, which is awesome. I love. It's like a horror comic that I actually like, which is super cool. There's tons of genres on WEBTOON. Download the app. You can download chapters. Tons and tons of free content on there. So huge shout out to WEBTOON for sponsoring this video. Appreciate you. And with that being said, I'll see you in my next WEBTOON review. Have a good day. Take care.